TV network on ZingoTV, channel 250. Don't forget to download both the Barn Burner app and the ZingoTV app on their respective stores, iOS and Android. Because if you don't, I'm going to feel really sad about that. Do you really want a pitiful person like me feeling bad? I don't think you do. ZingoTV is also available on Roku, Roku Sticks, Amazon Fire Sticks, Google Chromecast, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. So you know what? It's free, so download it today. We got enough apps anyway. We got some cool stuff on there. Add another app to your phone because God knows your phone needs more of it anyway. Anyway, how's everybody doing out there? My name is Scott Schertzen, and this is Tales from the Film Set, where we regale all the stories we see from behind the scenes, the good, the bad, the ugly, and a lot of times the really funny things that we see on sets that you probably never heard about. So, alongside me is my far better co-hostess, Ms. Jasmine Block-Krempels. How are you, ma'am?
How's it going?
Fabu, and Mr. Rob Stats back again off the boat, fresh off the boat.
Fresh off the boat.
Fresh off the boat, now in his living room. Nice little flat screen behind him right there. So yeah, we got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about stunt fails because I want to talk about the first time that I had Stats. I know you've got a story or two you were talking about last week. I never got into my story about Tracy Morgan and the godsend of a human being that he is. And I do want to talk a little bit about COVID and how that's affecting things and some of the new requirements coming down the pipeline. Before I get into that, how you folks doing? Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I actually just used my popular phrase from earlier today, cop them up, in a tweet to someone.
Really?
Literally just said, if you don't like, it was in regards to something I tweeted about elected official of SAG-AFTRA. I said, that's my opinion of them. If you don't like it, cop them up.
I believe in this particular case, for those of you who don't know, cop them up is usually not on the most positive side of things. It's not usually something.
It means take a hike.
That's a polite way of saying it there. So,
the words of the great Uncle Spanky.
Yes, kids. This is we're dating ourselves royally, I think, in this particular case, but that's okay. So, Jasmine, how you?
I have an Uncle Spanky.
Do you?
Yeah, my uncle. I have an uncle we call Spanky. He's a Vietnam vet and a cancer survivor. Man, he's a warrior.
Nice.
So anytime I can give him a plug. Awesome.
I'm an only child with no cousins, so I have no idea what it's like to actually have any. So when you were a kid growing up in school, you had to do your family tree. I was done with mine in about 3.5 minutes.
You're lying. You're like, no, seriously.
I got that.
People.
I grew up in a Roman Catholic town. Where everybody
it goes off the paper, 2 papers.
I was like, everybody had 6 cousins and 2 siblings, 19 aunts and uncles, and all these people, and I'm just like, my parents. Their parents.
Right. My parents had some parents.
Yeah.
I might have had a great aunt or uncle at some point. Don't know. They're not around anymore.
In the extended family, I think I met maybe once in my life at some family reunion. I know any of these people anyway. I didn't care.
That kind of just makes it seem like you're in witness protection or something. And you don't, you couldn't think fast enough to make up your fake family that they set you up with. I feel like that had to have been a plot from either like, Blacklist or Alias or one of those. Got to show them your family tree. That you couldn't think fast enough.
Exactly. It's like Mom. Yeah. But like I said, in this case, it was Christmas was always very nice. But never having a sibling, I could anything went wrong, I couldn't blame my mom on it.
Right. Not as good.
No, not as good. So, but yeah, we're going to talk some stunt work today. You had mentioned, Rob, last week about a near miss with I think it was a spear or something.
Yeah, that was on Noah. I almost got an eyeball.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we're going to mention the name, but you know what? Screw it. People got pneumonia on that. What is it? 8 years after the fact?
Yeah, it's been 8 years.
It's been 8 years. I couldn't do it. I was working Boardwalk Empire at the time, and they didn't want to mix up haircuts on that. So I'm like,
you missed out, man. You missed out.
Basically,
that was one of the glorious things about it. Was like not like. It was the most low maintenance show you can imagine, but like they would dirty us up, but they were like. Yeah, like hair and makeup would joke. They're like, just shower. Remember to shower at night, but don't shave, don't comb your hair. There were some great stories. Like our friend, I don't know if you know Kim Gramis, actress, singer. She's worked with us on a bunch of stuff. I met her on Noah, and she had a kind of like dirty blonde hair. Like the second or third day, it might have been the second week we were filming. She comes in and she's like, "Yeah, there was a note on my door last night when I got home from my mom that said." Water's on for the hose. Rinse your hair out in the backyard. Because there was so much dirty works in her hair. Like the first week of filming, it left like everybody would come home and shower and just wash all the dirty works off you. It left like a ring around the tub or the shower. And her mom was like, "Here, we turned the hose on. Rinse your hair out in the backyard." And she said she literally was in the backyard at like 4 a.m. trying to like just get most of it out of her hair before she went in the house.
So almost like that scene from Pulp Fiction then.
Yeah, basically.
In a similar story, they used that stuff on my car once, and I couldn't get off my car to drive home. They had to take
it's
like
really bad. Like sometimes, I don't like it when they put it on my car. I'm like, I try not to let them. I avoid.
I had like a weird situation on I think it was Dark Tower. Is that the Stephen King?
Yeah, that
thing?
was Idris Elba, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
and they took my car as a picture car. It was a 2-day shoot, and they didn't really ask, so they set up the car like all the buildings have imploded around the car. So there's like rubble. They spray it down with all like the fake dirt or whatever. And I'm like, well, how am I gonna like get my car out of here to drive home? Like, we're coming back tomorrow. They're like, oh no, you're not driving home. Like, you got to leave the car. It's on its mark. Your car. I said, well, you didn't rent my car overnight. Like, what? They're like, well, take a cab. I said, I live in New Jersey. We were in like Dumbo. We were in like Dumbo or something. I was like, there ain't no subway that goes to like, in New Jersey. So it was the first time in my life I've ever had car service. I've never I drive a car. I never had to so they got me car service home and then car service back to set in the morning. But I couldn't get the stuff off my car the next day to drive home. They're like trying to scrape it off. And it wasn't just me. And ultimately it ruined the finish of that car. I tried to get it detailed and like repainted, and they were like, yeah, it's just permanently scratched. But I made real good money because I ended up negotiating the car rental through props.
Okay.
So I made more than my $37.50 a day for the car. But I was like, I would never let them use that stuff on my car ever again, knowing that. And I didn't realize, but it's gross. I mean, I don't even know. It's like a paste that drives into a concrete, and then I can't believe people got that on their hair. That's gross.
I've been fortunate.
It was just like dirty. It was like
that. What's that?
Like a shampoo type thing that they had, but it was pretty. Like some people who had lighter hair, it was funny because they were like, yeah, I had to go wash it out, and by the halfway through, we knew who had head wraps on and stuff. You didn't really have to put it in, but it was I never let them put stuff like that on my car though either, because it just doesn't. It's the same stories I've heard from other people. Like it peels the finish off, like it doesn't come off the.
Well, and then the car wash thinks they can scrub it off, and they're actually just
scratches.
Yeah, they're just scratching the whole car. And I had a nice tuxedo, like sparkly tuxedo finish on that car. The whole thing was scratched up, and from far away it was fine or whatever. But I was just like, okay, was it worth my $800? I don't know. It probably was. Because I wasn't going to pay to have the car repainted. So it's like, all right, fine.
Funny car service a few years back, somebody backed out of a driveway across the street and scratched like a back bumper of my car, and I had to go work with it like the next day. I had like a massive scratch. Thankfully it was a black car. 20 minutes later I'm outside with a Sharpie.
Yep. I've been there.
Just coloring it in with a Sharpie, and I went there and they're like, oh, we're on set, and I'm like, does my car look bad? And they're like, no, it looks fine. I'm like,
yeah,
go up really close, and all of a sudden they're looking like, wait,
it smells like a marker.
Yeah, like it smells like magic marker. I'm like, yeah, Sharpied it.
I got one for you. So basically, there was a movie in 2014 that filmed mainly in Connecticut called "And So It Goes." It was directed by Rob Reiner. It was Michael Douglas was the main lead on it. Rob Reiner was a heck of a nice guy, very, very kind individual. But we were shooting, and it took place in Southport, Connecticut. When Connecticut has money, Southport has money within Connecticut, where literally someone was complaining about the fact they were going to, quote unquote, have to do something on land today because it was raining. In this particular case, there was a woman who brought a Jag at a picture car rate, a $50,000 Jag, and she parked it on a hill where, right outside this real estate office. The car is on a hill like so. Up at the top of the hill here is crew equipment. So somebody pushed something, and basically one of those metal crew cars, the cars I'm talking about.
Yeah, like the giant dollies full of stuff.
Yeah, so it just starts rolling downhill, and nobody's close enough to get to this thing. And you're doing one of those slow motion,
right.
And then all the stuff, it hits, the cart hits, all the stuff slides onto the roof of this $50,000 Jag, scratches the snot out of it. Just tears it apart. And obviously that's something you can't buff out. You have to go and you have to just take the hood off. You got to replace this whole thing. And this poor woman, she's like, I didn't tell my husband I was going to be taking it today.
Oh God.
He is going to kill me.
Well, there's all kinds of weird stories where people they say they have X thing, so they get hired, but then they got to go borrow it from someone else. So I will never forget, we were doing, it was like ice skating at Rockefeller Center for actual 30 Rock, when 30 Rock was still going, and all you needed to do was say you could ice skate and you had your own skates. Okay, because the rental place is closed or whatever. So the people that show up to those things, it's like not their skates. It's like the wrong size skates. They don't actually know how to ice skate, but they borrow skates from someone else. And I think the first take, someone's ice skates fell apart. Like the screws came off, the blade fell off. The woman broke her wrist and got carted out of there. I don't know if she got paid for the day. Probably got paid.
That became one of like the biggest safety concerns on set was ice skating. And I remember like it's gotten to a point where casting directors are like,
I've done so much ice skating on set.
Like I play hockey, so I put in, like, I play hockey, I can skate. But I remember like casting directors, I think at one point got like they had authorization. They were like, if you show up and you cannot skate, you're not getting paid.
Right. Well, they watch you try to lace the skates up, and if you can't figure out how to like tie them correctly, they're like, "Yeah, you just go back, go back to holding." And the same thing, I did a Best Buy commercial, which filmed literally like it just never happens. Filmed in the town I live in, which
nice.
So there's like a county ice arena. Really there's believe me, the people are complaining about the tolls and I was like, oh yeah, you suckers. I pay how much tolls every time I got to go to work. And this was pre-COVID. They bussed everybody out from the city, whoever they hired. First, we weren't even filming. It was like, take a practice lap. The ice is super, super clean, just cleaned. Like, let's buff it, scratch it up a little bit so people don't kill themselves. The first lap, someone, does one of the woo, 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 falls backwards, crack their head. And then they didn't know what to do with them because they didn't have an extra van to take them back to the city. Huh. So, like, they just sat with, like, an ice pack on their head for the rest of the day. But, like, it's like, it looks like, oh, everybody's having fun ice skating. But if you don't skate like on a regular basis, there's a reason they give special ability for ice skating.
One of the problems I think that happens is that the ice sort of like melts or something.
Over time, yes. Yeah, but also people don't realize it's hard. I mean, and Rob knows if you play hockey, you skate for a long period of time. People aren't used to skating for, you go fun skate at Bryant Park, you skate for 20 minutes and you're like, all right, I've had enough. You have to skate for like 8 hours on these shoots and people's legs just give out.
Yeah.
You can't catch yourself when you're going to fall. It's like, it's dangerous.
What was the name of the movie that had Will Smith as the main lead? Kate Winslet was in it also.
Oh, Collateral Beauty.
Oh, dude, I did skating on that, and
it was like an overnight, like February or something, wasn't it?
And the scene, like, I don't think the scene was in the movie because it was like I should have been all over that. It was just wipe, and it was the same thing. It was like they watch people skate around, they find the 5 people that aren't going to kill themselves, and you're the people that come through the camera. Every time.
They asked me, like, can you skate? It's like, I'm like, no.
You're just like flat out no.
Cool, we'll just stay down the side.
Oh, were you like standing around the edge or whatever?
Yeah. And I was
lucky jerk.
Remember that day though? Because Kate Winslet was there. And
yes. And Michael Pena, right?
I think he was too. But it was you had like 40 paparazzi that were there. Steve Sands was there, which ironically enough, I don't know why. I have Steve Sands' cell number. Steve Sands
on purpose, or did he like take your phone and put it in there when you weren't?
The #1 paparazzi in the New York area, and literally voted as one of New York City's most hated people. Yes. I have his cell number. And
you can sell that. Like there are people who will buy that number off of you to harass it. It'll be like, oh, here we go. They'll be texting.
I have not seen him in a while. Now that
I saw him
recently, okay, he's still.
The whole time I was on Hawkeye. He was there every day.
You weren't on Hawkeye. You were on something else.
No, I was on Hawkeye.
The thing that rhymes with Hawkeye.
At that though, but
Squawkeye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But like you said, like Jasmine said, though, with the ice skating, like that's what people don't realize. I did. Dennis Leary had a show called the Beer League show. I can't remember what it was called. It was about a beer hockey league, and my friends in LA that I play hockey with all saw it. They were like, "Oh, this was awesome!" And when I play with them, a lot of times we're shorthanded, so you're playing like a whole game. And they're like, how do you skate for like 60 straight minutes? I go, oh, you've never been on set. I was like, this is what it's like on set. Like, you just keep going in circles. I said, there's like, you get a line change. Like, you stop for like maybe a minute. But I said, but you're just constantly going. I was like, so when we play a game and I can come off for 2 minutes, on a regular line change, I'm like, yo, I'm ready to go. They're like, because they all swear, like, we joke around. My best friend smokes before games. They're like, you're in such better shape. I go, yeah, it's because I skated on set. Like, it's a whole different world and different mentality of like, maintaining your endurance for that.
Well, that's what kills me. People come out, they come out. All right, we're all sitting there ready to go. They come off the bench and they're sprinting around the rink like, guys, this is like the hour 1 of 6, and we're not getting a break for 2 hours if someone's actually keeping track of breaks. So it's just slow and steady. Like I almost skate like painfully slow. Like I love to skate fast, but I'm like, no, like my shins are gonna give out, and I still got 6 hours, 7 hours to go.
Even roller skating's the same way. Like I
haven't done that in a long time.
I stood in and I photo doubled Ben Stiller on While We're Young. And if anybody's seen the movie, part of the movie is him learning how to rollerblade. And that's why I got the gig. And I remember in the very beginning, I was like, they were saying, like, he really didn't know how to rollerblade. And he's going, I'm like, yo, you can't do, like, Noah Bumgard was directing, and Noah kind of likes to do a lot of takes. I was like, I think it was Ben's, like, security guard. I'm like, we can't do, like, more than 10 takes. He's like, yeah, I know. And you could see his ankles like
starting to wobble in.
And I'm like, he's gonna get hurt. And I'm like, people don't realize, man. It's like after a couple minutes, you're like, okay, I got to kind of sit down. I got to rest my feet. I got to recharge. And you don't always have that luxury. And it's everything's like anything like physically active. People love to just come out and like so method gung ho, going all out. And it's even like in stunts, we always joke, we're like, it's too fast for film. Like there's times where you go too fast. It's like, just slow down, slow down, save your energy. You're going to do it in less takes if you slow down anyway, because it's not going to be a blur. So like, don't waste the energy and don't rush into it.
Supposedly that was a problem Jet Li used to have, though. He used to punch so fast the camera couldn't catch him.
Yeah.
So they made him slow down, like for Lethal Weapon 4 when he broke out. He had to slow down all of his movements to have the camera actually catch up to it.
That was our motto on Person of Interest with Tony Vincent, who's now a stunt coordinator. He was Jim Caviezel's stunt double. And Jeff Gibson was our stunt coordinator. And he always we would do something and we would look back at Jeff and he'd go, what do you think I'm going to say? And Tony'd go,
too fast.
Too fast for film. And we would just slow it down. We're like, okay, let's find the range. And he's like, there, perfect. And we would slow it down and get it in like 2 or 3 takes. And we'd be great. I was like, okay, perfect.
I miss Person of Interest. That show, I don't know what it was, but it was just, they loved my car for some reason, the car that I had at that time, which is always a nice thing. But there was just something strangely fun about it.
It was a very fun show to work on. Yeah, I mean, even we had a certain AD who was insane for the first couple of seasons. Like
is his initials TA?
No, PS.
All right, I'd have to think about
Screamer. But yeah, the cast was fun. Like Jim, Michael Emerson was super chill. And
I played Wheel of Fortune with him once because we were sitting at we were sitting at a bar. And we're, between takes and everything like that. And I'm sitting there and you know what it's like trying to actually solve a puzzle, against Finch from Person of Interest, who's like one of the smartest people in the world's ever known, built this supercomputer in the show. And it's like, all right, I got to figure this out before this man. And it was so funny because, he's a hell of a nice guy. He totally, Jim Caviezel was very quiet though.
I remember the first time we were on set we were going to set, we got in the elevator together and the elevator guy in this building, his first name was Emerson. And he looks and goes, your name's Emerson? He goes, yeah. He goes, so's mine. He goes, well, my last name. And I'm like, and he just struck up a conversation with this dude. He's like, oh, what's, where you from and everything? And I'm like, okay, this is like the first season. I'm like, this is a show I want to work on. Like, this is someone I want to work with. You could just get that vibe from him right away. And Caviezel was quiet. Then you had Sarah Shahi, who was super, she was funny. And she had some moments. Like, we had a director one time who was just didn't have a shot list, first of all. So the UPM at one point of the producer's like, where's your shot list? She's like, it's up in here. And she goes, no, you need to put it on paper. And we kept doing something and she kept changing what she wanted to do. And I remember coming around the corner and she just throws this bag, it was a prop bag. And we're like, and we'd never seen her get flustered. And we're just like, oh man, this is one of those days. And I think Amy Acker this is when Amy Acker first came on the show, and Amy's just like, you good? She's like, yeah, I'm good. And calmed her down a little bit, but I was like, oh man.
She was cool. I remember she was actually really, Chapman was nice too. Here's the weird thing. I body doubled. They had me body double for, was it Kevin Chapman or Gary Chapman?
Kevin Chapman. Yeah.
Chapman. I always get those two wrong. One of them's an author, one of them's not.
Yeah.
But it was weird because they made me go into his entire wardrobe just for this one scene where I'm reaching across the table to grab a set of keys. And
yeah, you have to have the right socks on, right? Just in case somebody see your feet.
Here's the weird thing. Okay. Even at my heaviest, I was more or less my heaviest at that point. I was still a 38, 40 waist. This man was a 46 pants. So he had
What the?
he had a size 50 jacket, which I can borderline do it as a size 46, 44, 46. I can sort of pull off a size 50, but his pants were so big. They were like bags. And they're like, we need to make this look right. And they put a watch on me, and they spent about an hour literally pedicuring my one hand. So I'm sitting up there, you know, in that whatever the main holding area that they used to have at Silver Cup. It's Silver Cup East.
Yeah. Oh, in Silver Cup East, yeah.
Silver Cup, and she would just sit there she was like an hour.
Yeah, you got the nice buff. You got the Manny.
Oh God,
that's the dream.
I actually started doing that myself because I hand doubled Michael and Paul Ben Victor and a couple other guys on the show. I would just, because there were a lot of them were like all 5'8". So if it was a hand double, like, okay, come in and do this. And same thing. I think the first time I went through, they like basically manicured me. And then it was like, all right, I'm going to do this like every episode or every other episode. So I would just go out and I got the little buff thing, come in like, I'm good. Okay, boom, go through wardrobe and be done.
But the real question is, do their hands look that good all the time?
No.
You never see their hands on camera. They got like the grimiest, like, you know, regular person nails that you could ever imagine. And then the hand double's like, gotta shine it up all nice.
There's a great episode. There's a great episode of SVU. One of the Law and Orders I was watching during the break, the quarantine, and I happened to notice it because it was blatantly obvious. It's like Stabler. I think it was SVU. Holds something up, and I'm like, that's a woman's finger, like hand on there. Like, that's so not them. The only person where, ironically, that my hands were almost identical to were Giovanni Ribisi's on Sneaky Pete. Where
he did 3 seasons with
we would look, and it was just, his fingers were a little bit, like, slightly bigger, but the look, like, people would look and go, like, wait, is that you or Gio? I'm like, I knew what scenes I did, but you couldn't, like, he would do a lot of inserts himself. Even editing, like, people in post were like, dude, we can't tell the difference sometimes. Like, we wouldn't have known if somebody didn't tell us that it was 2 different sets of hands.
I had people on the street confuse me for Donald Logue when I had the beard. Because I was just the right height, right match, right look, everything like that. So I remember that we were doing some overnights and people actually thought I was him. And I'm like, I'm enjoying the moment, but boy, they're going to be disappointed about 3 minutes. But it was.
If you can make it 3 minutes, you really got to sell it hard for 3 minutes, you know?
No, you just sit there, you just commits how you doing, you know, you having fun. I mean, it's a nice night out, et cetera, et cetera. Just let them talk. You know, it's like sales. You know, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So you listen twice as much as you talk. You just let them roll. But so I did want to tell a story. I'm going to go, let's see. Sherman, we are going to set the Wayback Machine to.
Oh, no.
There it is. Nope. It is the
you have to tell your Tracy Morgan story tonight.
Oh, I'm going to get
3 weeks.
Right. Everybody's been held in suspense for 3 weeks. We can't wait any longer.
All right. So I'll start with that one first before I get into the first stunt and how I actually nearly lost my teeth on that one. So Tracy Morgan, you guys have seen him on set. You know how he is as a person. He is far and away one of the kindest, sweetest, most beautiful human beings on the planet. He is somebody who is very great, even before, you know, the accident happened. He was somebody that was always very grateful and very appreciative. Kevin Smith had talked about that on the movie Cop Out, that he was a dream and a half. So one of the things that he does is he also, in this case, he does not eat in a trailer. He eats with everybody. And I always like when people do that. You know, you see sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. He always did. He's like, listen, do you guys mind? I like to play music while I'm doing this, while I'm eating. We're not going to tell him no. You know, it's like, so he's big into, like, you know, 80s, 90s rap kind of stuff. But he's sitting there and he's, you know, he's doing this whole thing where he just starts really getting into it and, like, really kind of getting into it with himself. And he starts doing this whole thing where he's, you know, basically to camera like this. And he starts doing, you know, that whole thing where you're behind, where you're
making out with yourself.
Yeah, you're making out with yourself with the back to the camera. And he's just sitting there just like, oh, yeah. You know, and doing this whole thing to the camera. There was a pole there. He's grinding up against the pole and he just did not care. But he just, and he's like, I'm really, really sorry I wanted to do that. I actually pulled the plug out here. He's like, I'm so sorry I did that. I feel really, really bad by the fact that I did that. Are you guys cool with it? We're like, shit, dude, we're going to store it for the rest of our life here. You know, and we would do all this stuff all the time where even when he wasn't performing, in his head, he's still performing. You know, I remember seeing on 30 Rock, the first time I ever saw him, there was a whole thing there where he had to do some kind of a teleprompter skit as his character, as Tracy. And he's sitting there, and the first AD was sitting, is like, Tracy, bring it back. Because he would just go off on these ad-lib tangents. He got all of us, and the first time I was ever on 30 Rock, he got the entire background to sing Jackson 5. A, B, C, it's easy. And he got everybody going, like, Tracy, we're on a schedule here, Tracy, come on. Because he would just do this kind of stuff, and nobody cared. I mean, the UPM, the ADs, the money people care. But the rest of us are like, oh my God, this is an amazing experience. And then, of course, I didn't show up in that episode at all. So...
I did. One time I was with him on set for 30 Rock. We did this. The episode was Tina was joining like the Silver Bells or something. It was called like Silver Liberty Bells. It's like a geriatric Knicks cheer team, and Tracy shows up and Baldwin's there or whatever. And Baldwin was weird because Baldwin like at the time had a really bad back, and he like shuffled in. Like looked like a 90-year-old man because at the time I think he ended up going for back surgery or something was wrong with his back. But Tracy comes in and I don't know if it was his wife or his assistant or if his wife was his assistant or whatever. But he's in there just clowning around, cracking jokes, goofing, and he goes, "I better stop." And he was like, Craig goes, "They're gonna get me." He said, "My assistant's gonna give me the side eye," and he's like, "I mean, assistant might be my wife. I don't know." And like he was just making fun, but he knew like. He's just the guy because he's got that stand-up, the whole comedy background. So it's always a show. Yeah, he's just like, and it was like, okay, we're sitting in Silver Cup, just like cramped up, and I'm like, all right, at least this is fun. Like I'm getting kind of a sideshow in addition to what we're shooting, and it's worth it.
I think that's like the best situation though, right? He found a job where, they'll turn the cameras on sometimes. Sorry, my cat's coming in for a bit. But he'll turn the camera on sometimes, but there's always people watching like all day for 12 hours. Like that's the dream, right? Like who cares when they're filming? He has a captive audience all day and all night, and it's like, living the dream. So for him, it's like a perfect situation.
Oh, sure. And it's funny because even with The Last OG, which I'm guessing has got to be starting filming pretty soon, because that usually started in January, but I haven't heard anything anyway.
Wasn't there stuff posted this fall, or were they finishing up from the spring?
I don't know, but they're supposed to start filming season 4 after the cliffhanger at the end of season 3. Sorry.
Okay.
But even then, I mean, there was times that we would just hang out with him and Transpo. I remember one time, I don't know what happened. We didn't end up in Holden because it's too far away. So we're just hanging out with Transpo and Tracy Morgan and eating barbecue. Because the Transpo guys were like, we don't want to go to catering. We just threw a barbecue right here. Help yourself, please. So we're just hanging out with him.
Tell you what, those Transpo guys, like that is a culture unto itself.
Oh boy.
And they are like, not that they're all super friendly, but like looking at them, you want to be like, oh, these guys are well off. Those guys make bank.
Oh, yeah, you would not think that.
And like no offense to like Transpo guys, but they sit in a van all day. They're like they're not wearing like a suit like a taxi driver. They're like just wearing what you would wear to sit around all day. But they are making insane money for just to be available all day in case someone might need to go somewhere.
I think it's $100 an hour or something at overtime.
Especially it's the overtime that's like, and they get overtime every single. They're never working a straight 8. They don't. That doesn't exist for them.
Minimum 10,
unless it's Steven Soderbergh or Woody Allen or Spike Lee.
Yeah, if you're doing like a Soderbergh or Spike movie, it's like maybe you'll get 10, a short 10, but they're like 12 hours a day. Even when I worked on Sneaky Pete, like I got to know a couple of the drivers and stuff. Like one guy lived right up the road from me, so if we did like Fraturdays, he's like, "Oh, where you?" Like I would park at my grandparents' house in Weehawken, and he would drive me through the tunnel and drop me off there.
Oh, that's sweet.
But, because I was like, I told him, I go, I got to wait for the bus. He's like, no. He goes, jump in my van. He worked it out with their captain. He's like, I'm gonna take him with me, drop everybody off, and would drop me off outside the tunnel. And it also helped at that point too that I was like, everybody knew who I was and what my job was, and I'm sure it came down from the top to like, hey, get him home safe or whatever. But it was. They make, like Jasmine said, you would not think it. Like we joke, we kept saying like the Knicks should change their team name to like the New York Teamsters and get an endorsement deal with New Balance, and everybody would, because they all wear like the same white New Balance sneaker, but they
dress down because they don't have to dress up for anything. Yeah,
they make oh my God, I was like one of my dad's friends, I refer to as my uncle. He was a Teamster captain.
Not Uncle Spanky.
Not Uncle Spanky.
Oh, okay.
Fake uncle.
They make. He would talk about it all the time. Like he's like, yeah, they make great money. And a lot of them too, especially those who drive the cast, I found out a lot of them are retired NYPD.
Right, because you have to retire so young anyway. You got to do something with your time, right? You know, most NYPD that retire don't just sit home and retire because you're young.
But it's also a double, like you kill two birds with one stone too, because you basically have your security guard there with them. Because I've talked to a few guys who are like, yeah, I'm retired NYPD, and I'm like, I've never felt safer in a van than right now. Like, because you know, if something goes sideways, like this dude's got my back, like I'm good to go.
And in this case, obviously, they're getting pension, whatever it is, maybe half pay after 20, plus the Teamster salary on top of it.
So there was a time, and I don't know when this was, that there was, instead of merging with AFTRA, SAG was going to merge with the Teamsters.
There's rumors, yeah.
And, you know, like that would have actually been the most lucrative, hands down. Like they're the... I think like it's not just like movie set drivers, like UPS is Teamsters. It's like like the driving profession, and they're like one of the strongest unions in the world. That might have been a more strategic play than merging with AFTRA, but
they all like are in SAG-AFTRA. The staff members are under Teamster contract, from what I've been told. So they don't just do like transpo. They have like so many so many different sub locals. That
any union would be smart to get on that bandwagon because it's so the Teamsters union is so strong. You know, meanwhile we're talking about, you know, walking around trying to make a living, walking around in the middle of the night in an overnight shoot. Those guys are sitting in a heated van all night, like
sleeping sometimes.
Right, mostly sleeping until someone taps on the window. Like, you know, who made the better decision there? Like, let's be honest.
That's like the scariest thing is when you have to walk up to a van and you're like, are they sleeping? Like, do I really want to knock on this window if he's sleeping? I'm like, tink, tink, tink. Like,
right.
Are you awake?
Are you awake? Are you alive? I don't want to just open the door because what if it's not okay, that's the other thing. What if it's not a transpo van? What if it's just like a van on the side of the road and you don't realize because it's in line with a bunch of other vans? And I'm like, I'm going to let someone else go in first.
Well, I remember one time on Gotham, they gave us a safety ride back to, I think it was Grand Central. And we picked up some stray dude who just thought basically he's just going to get. So, you know, where's everybody going to, you know, because you're driving and it's like, okay, where does everybody want to go? You know, my choice was always Penn Station, but it never ended up being that.
No, you never make it to Penn Station.
No, but it's like, you know, Grand Central. And then basically this one dude way in the back, it's 2 a.m. He's like, you know, so where are we going? We're going to go to Grand Central. Okay. Is that what you want? Yeah. And then we started listening. It's like the voice didn't sound right. It's like, what's your name? Jerry, what department are you with? Security?
No.
And it's like, are you with the show? Like, what show?
Right.
This dude just got out. Just came with us.
But like, also, wouldn't you check like when you get in? Oh, hey, how's it going? Like, where are we? Where does this go? Like, if you don't recognize anyone, wouldn't you be like, hey, where are y'all going? Nope, just right in.
Got it. We had a pilot we shot in the city. It was in Manhattan a couple of years back, and we were filming it was like in the 50s somewhere. Holding was in this building. And some like random homeless guy just walks in with all the BGM standing there outside the elevator, and everyone's looking, and it looked like a bizarro version of Radio Man. And they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "That's not like he's not." And I say to the security guard for the building, I go, "One of those people's not with us." And he's like, "What?" And it was the first they were like, "Code 5 on the 4th floor, code 5." We get up there. This dude's walking around. His sleeve looked weird. He didn't have a hand out of his one sleeve. He had a bottle of soda in his sleeve, like a 2-liter bottle. And he was walking around. Catering realized they're like, dude, he probably just wants some food. Like, we'll give him a plate and we'll get him out. The building's like, throw him out. And they're like, production's like, oh, we don't need to make a scene. Like, we can get him out. We're going to...
And half this food's going to get thrown out anyway. Give him a plate.
Yeah. Catering's like, we'll lure him out with food. Everything will be cool. And the building security made like a huge scene. And like, we're embarrassed. We're like, we didn't have, like, it's not the first time we've had kind of a bogey, you know, in holding or on set. Like, we know how to handle it. And they kind of like threw him out. We all felt bad. We're like, and even the catering guys were like, man, they could have handled that so much better. We're like, well, you know.
I think we need to talk about Radio Man because there might be people who legitimately don't know who that is.
Yes, I think we should.
I think, you know, like.
Good old Craig.
I did not even know that was his name.
Craig Castaldo.
He's got an IMDb.
Yeah,
right?
He was another one all over, showed up like the entire second week of Hawkeye. And he amazes me because I'm like, bro, they put you in a shop. like once you're in a shot, like you're done. And he just kept showing up. And I'm like, do you like, it's not your first time being on set. Like, you know, the drill. Once they put you in, like, you might as well go home and stay warm. Like,
so contrary to popular belief, he is not homeless, even though
that dude's got banged, I think.
Right. No, I think he has like residuals. Like, I don't.
Oh yeah, that I know he gets.
You know, he's not like scraping by. He's got a pretty nice cell phone. Someone told me once he was talking to his manager. I was like,
well, I mean, George Clooney took him to the Oscars one year. I think it was it George Clooney? Somebody took him to the Oscars.
It was someone that big for sure. I don't remember if it was Clooney or not, but yeah, if you start looking around in the background of all the films that are shot here on the East Coast, he was in literally everything.
He looks like a garden gnome.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe him. If you see a guy who looks like a garden gnome, it's probably Radio Man.
With a boombox.
Or a bicycle.
A bicycle and a boombox around his neck on a string, which...
He has so many IMDb credits too.
I've heard there's so many rumors about him. There's a documentary on him too, I think.
Scott, we got to get him on the show. Does he have a computer? Does he have a computer?
He owns the internet. That's what we're going to find out.
Oh, is he actually, he's like actually watching the show right now, you know, just trolling the internet?
But I've heard that he's like he was a retired printer, because the printers union used to be like a really big thing back in the day. I've heard people caught him taking the bike out of the back of his car. Like, he drove somewhere and pulled the bike out. Like, there's so many crazy stories.
I feel like
him.
Scott, there was something we worked on together in Long Island many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and there was no way to get there by bicycle. And somehow Radio Man showed up on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Well, no, because he drove his car and parked it somewhere and then like got out and rode the bicycle. But we're just like, you can't get here except if you have a car. Like, it was... I don't remember where we were.
Well, I know when the second season of Sneaky Pete, I think, did I tell this story before on this show or another show?
Yeah, it's okay. Run with it.
We were filming at the Mamaroneck Motel. That was like one of our key on location sets. And he rented a room out there because it was Sneaky Pete season 2, Bryan Cranston. He had like the end room on the row, and he left the air conditioner on. We had to go in and they're like, we got to turn the air conditioner off. So they talked to the manager. The manager, I guess, called him up. They're like, they're going to go in and just turn the AC off. He left a turkey sandwich in the room on the air conditioner for like 3 days. It smelled like a dead body. I was walking up the driveway.
It was a dead body. That's what that was.
I turned the corner. I'm like, oh my God. Like, oh, what is that smell? The PAs literally, like, no joke, they drew straws to see who had to run in, turn the air conditioner off, and run out, like, while holding their breath. And they were like, whoever it was, they're like, one person had the door with their face covered. They're like, 3, 2, 1, open the door. The person ran in, like, in a single breath. We're like, turned it off and ran out. And it was just so, I think they ran out and they were like, spray me with like Febreze, because it was so bad. They're like, the smell's going to be on me. Like, oh.
You know, if you want to see what he looks like, and I have him up on IMDb right now. He has 2 movies that are airing tonight. One in 10 minutes is Tower Heist, where
I didn't work on that,
which actually was Radio Man, and then Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick one, where he's
so bad it's good.
He's also he's also playing as the Radio Man, but not always. I mean, sometimes he's a soup pitching guy, but he literally has 2 movies, one on HBO tonight and one on Starz.
Tonight. I have like one a month. I'm lucky if, you know, somebody sees the back of my head once a month. And this guy's on TV twice tonight.
Let me see what my IMDb says as far as
Craig Castaldo.
Craig, yep, you found him.
Yeah, I actually looked at the documentary. The movie Radio Man came out in 2012.
Yeah.
And it's his actor stunts.
He went to the premiere in London. First time I met him, he asked me if I wanted an autograph. But
he got 25 acting credits.
Yep.
1 stunt credit.
Irishman's in there. Unforgettable. I remember that day for Unforgettable because they had him on the call sheet. Craig Castaldo, Radio Man, on the call sheet itself. It's like
right. So like that had to be prearranged. Like he has to have people, or at least a phone number where people, you know, like he's got this facade of like, I live on the street, but actually he's running like a whole business of being homeless, of looking homeless and making a living out of it, which is Good for that guy.
Yeah, he's pulling it off pretty well.
He's been in Elf. He's been in like a bunch of 30 Rock
I saw him in Elf.
episodes.
Yeah, he was in Zoolander as well. He was like, I think basically more towards the beginning, I can't remember, but he was in Zoolander as well.
When was like the first Radio Man cameo?
95, I think, or 96.
96, Ransom.
So he just missed Home Alone. He was a little bit on the late for Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. Because I feel like that could have been,
He could have been the pigeon lady.
He could have been the friend of the pigeon lady. Her estranged husband or whatever. Radio Man.
Ransom from 96, Mel Gibson, Rene Russo. Give me back my son.
If they do a Home Alone 3, did you see the synopsis for like Home Alone 3? It's someone wrote it. It's Macaulay Culkin's character Kevin is in New York with his partner. He's homosexual, and they live in like the uncle's the house from part 2. Yeah. And their kid gets left home alone. Like it's like full circle. Like he's a museum curator, like his mom was, and everything.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that franchise, talk about falling off a cliff. Like Home Alone 1 killed it. Home Alone, they're like, let's just make 2. 2 is great. Macaulay Culkin,
cash grab.
He got, I guess, at that point he was like 12 or 13, and it just didn't make any sense. They recast Kevin, and I don't know how many went after that, but I never even saw any of them. And I was a kid at the time. Like that would have been. I'll go see anything in the movie theater that says Home Alone when I'm 10 years old. And even at that point, it was just like, nope, off the bandwagon, like too terrible.
You're talking the third one, the one Raj Gosnell did. Directed.
Correct. And then there were more, whether they went straight to TV or
5
DVD, video. Yeah,
right, there's 5.
I didn't know there were 2 more. I only knew there were 3.
Because did anyone see them? I don't think so.
Yeah, the next one had Missy Pyle and French Stewart. And then the fifth one, help me God, had Malcolm McDowell and Ed Asner, and that was against a girl. The fourth one still was Kevin McAllister, although he was younger than Macaulay Culkin ever was.
Yeah, actually, I do remember the one with French Stewart. I may not have seen 3. I remember the French
that one,
Stewart one for some odd reason.
Nostalgia Critic just did a review on it last week, so that's why I got my real feel of how that movie was. Home Alone 3, I did see. Raj Gosnell was the guy that also did the Smurfs movie. So, which was the first movie I ever did BG on way back in the day. The amount of makeup work that was done not only on Hank Azaria, but his stand-in as well. They put him through all that stuff for Gargamel. It was really hard to tell them apart.
Macaulay Culkin, affectionately known as Mac. Have you ever heard the Russell Brand story from Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
No.
People forget pre Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis dated Macaulay Culkin.
Yes, they lived together.
Yeah, so they're dating during filming Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and Russell Brand tells this hysterical story about he's talking to Mila, and she goes, "Oh yeah, so are you gonna be around later? Like my boyfriend Mac is coming. He'd love to meet you." And Russell's like, "Oh, Mac sounds like a cool guy's name." Like whatever. He goes and he meets him, and he walks in. He goes, "And who do I meet?" "Oh, Kevin McAllister." He was like, "What is?" He goes, "That's not Mac. That's Kevin McAllister." He's like, it's like his false advertising. He did it in one of his stand-up routines. It was hysterical. Like his reaction to that's not Mac. That's Kevin McAllister.
Well, apparently the only reason he did Home Alone 2 is because part of the contract allowed him to do the movie The Good Son. The movie where he played a psycho kid in a horror film.
That movie is that's dark.
That's a great dark movie.
And I was probably whatever. That was a couple of years after Home Alone 2, so maybe I was 12 or 13. It's it's got kids in it. This is cool. I'll go see it. And my parents don't even check what it is. They're like, "Yeah, go ahead. We'll pick you up later." And I was just horrified. Now the book was good. I read the book after I saw the movie, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is good," but not what I was expecting after the last Macaulay Culkin flicks.
He's done so many other flicks. He's known for Home Alone, but then he did My Girl?
Mm-hmm.
And what was Richie?
Heartbreaking scenes, people cry during.
The kid dies at the end. Macaulay Culkin dies at the end of that.
Yeah.
Was that him and Richie Rich? Obviously not. That was not a drama, but he was
Dream Master was him too.
Right. And he kind of fell off I don't know if he just started doing.
Well, he became more of an advocate because of what happened when he lost a lot of money.
His parents ended up with most of his money.
Embezzled most of his money on him, and because it's known as the Macaulay Culkin laws, and Rory and I always know Rory because Rory was on Sneaky Pete, and the other
Kieran.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kieran, like he basically made, he became an advocate for child actors, and it's like if there's a comeback that Hollywood wants and Hollywood needs, especially coming off of 2020, it's the Macaulay Culkin comeback. And
Right.
Anything he does now is gold.
Yeah, he makes fun of himself. Like he did the spoof video, like he's an Uber driver, and he's like, as Kevin McAllister, like, yeah, man, my parents left me home alone, and there was a great thing I read over the break. Like Home Alone is one of the most violent Christmas movies of all time. Like I was like, dude, the stunt work in it is amazing.
So the first one,
Die Hard and Lethal Weapon are Christmas movies also, by comparison.
I feel like Home Alone 1, you're like, ooh, that's painful, like, but they might have survived. By the time they made it to Home Alone 2, you're like, the first stunt, they would have been dead.
Kid's sadistic at that point.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even like, let's pretend that this is like, you could live through this. It was just like, we're going to suspend disbelief, and like, every stunt, he lit his head on fire and then put it in a toilet full of lighter fluid and blew up the whole house, and somehow that wasn't the end of the scene.
And what's funny is Daniel Stern said no to Home Alone.
Yeah, I just read that. I don't remember who.
Daniel Roebuck was the other one.
But they had already started filming, and he said, and he walked away or whatever happened. And they're like, "Hey, are you still available?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess." Yeah, and it turned out to be his like, most memorable, one of its most memorable.
He's
parts.
like, "Oh my God, the mistake I could have made on that." It's like, oh. But yeah, Daniel Roebuck was the mustachioed guy from The Fugitive, opposite Tommy Lee Jones. So you remember him mainly from that movie. But Daniel Stern nearly lost out on God knows how much money and notoriety, because he had done City Slickers and he'd done a few other things at that point. But he was this close to losing it. But
who could forget about
that was
right around the time of Rookie of the Year for
that was on today too.
Oh, I missed it. That's one of my. That's another one that's so bad you can't turn it off.
Thomas Ian Nicholas and I were actually we talked about that the first time I met him. It was on some independent movie with the big buff guy from Legends of Tomorrow and Prison Break, whatever that guy's name is.
Okay.
The two of them work together on stuff. And it was funny because we were talking about that. We were talking about his love of the Cubs. And I was brand new. I was a non-union background. I'm sitting there in the dude's trailer because they brought me in for wardrobe. And in walks Thomas Ian Nicholas. He's not wearing a shirt. And we're just sitting there talking about the Cubs and the fact they threw out the first pitch and Rookie of the Year. And I'm like brand new, 3 months into this industry. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Kevin from American Pie.
Right. Right. Well, he like no one. I don't know if
reach out to him. I got his.
If he went to, did he do anything in between those two? Because I remember him being a kid, and then I just remember him being like 20.
He has a band that performs in Stone Pony down in Central Jersey.
Oh, who knew?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if he's been.
Guyton Matarazzo.
Oh yeah.
From Stranger Things.
He's from South Jersey.
Yes. It was funny during the break. His family owns a restaurant, so he was helping them out because they were shorthanded, waiting tables. And like the National Enquirer is like, "Oh my God, Guyton Matarazzo's broke. Like he's waiting tables now in New Jersey." And I'm like, you couldn't be like, yes, he's waiting tables, but like you couldn't be any further from the truth with the rest of the story. But I remember Tom. It was Ian Thomas, whatever.
Ian Nicholas.
Ian Nicholas. Yeah, he did like 2 kid movies, and then he was doing American Pie stuff. But
maybe he went to college or something. Maybe he just actually went to school.
I think he did because he did an indie flick a couple of years ago, and I think he was like directing it as well as starring it. It was like super low budget, and he was definitely more like he was very much involved behind the camera as well as in front of the camera.
Yeah, I don't remember what the name of the movie was, but I remember they had me on there, like brought me back for a second day, and they gave me real alcohol at 7:00 in the morning at a bar. They wrapped me at 8. They literally only needed me for like a 1-hour shoot. But were
you just like the only guy drunk at the bar? Was that you?
Yeah. Yeah, but they're like, let's go for realism on this, and they gave me real alcohol. And when they wrapped me at 8:00 in the morning,
like,
I'm walking back to the PATH train, and I'm walking back like this, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this life. I don't want to sell insurance anymore.
Right? You're like, I've been missing out. The day drinking.
God, yeah, morning drinking in this case.
That's very rare that you get real alcohol. It's usually like grape juice or.
It wasn't.
Juice,
although if you do a multi-day shoot, by the end of it, it's starting to ferment. So if you wait it out long enough, it will turn into liquor, but hopefully not in the.
Delivering the Goods. That was the name of the movie. This is more for myself than anything else.
Sure.
So we got about 5 minutes left. I still have not done my freaking A&E story yet.
Well, go for it.
Let me knock this out. I said this last time. So, all right. So we got about 5 minutes left at this point. The very first stunt role that I ever did, the very first one, was all the way back in August of 2010. There was a TV show on A&E that lasted 3 seasons called Breakout Kings. I'm not sure if you guys ever remember it. It was
I love that show.
Okay, you remember it then?
Yes.
Yeah. So in this case, it was a commercial. It was a promo before the show started, and they had a bunch of us dressed up as inmates, some as cops. The typical thing, because it's a prison show. So they're trying to quell a prison riot. This was an unpaid or like $100 non-union day, and they're giving people not just prop guns, but prop machine guns. Now, Rob, you talked about last week about inexperienced stunt people. So this one dude basically tries to go for the realism, and he takes the butt of the M16 right into my jaw, straight into it. Like, so if he was an inch higher, it would have taken out my teeth. But it was some of this, because the whole thing was he was supposed to come down and then come into the stomach and then into the chest, into the chin. But he kept repeatedly trying to go so fast to make it look good, but not stopping in time.
Oh.
So the stomach is one thing. You can kind of take it in a little bit like so, but there's no give in the chin.
Not a lot of cushion there. It's all bones, bones and teeth.
And it was just, I don't know what they, what prompted them to say, okay, this is a good idea. Let's give non-union people a freaking, gun like this. But I walked out of there and I was bruised and I was beaten up on this. And I'm amazed that, like I said, my teeth are still in there. And that was the first stunt thing I ever did about a year before Dark Knight Rises was. And in hindsight, I literally forgot about that for a long period of time. But in hindsight, if I had realized what that was going to lead to, I probably would have quit any kind of stunt stuff at that point. But it's funny because I sort of forgot about it. And now at this point, it was literally, and I'm looking at the date, December 21st, 2010. So we just passed 10 years on that.
And you survived the last 10 years.
Yes, somehow or other, not many brain cells left because, they give you, day drink and alcohol.
Right. But you got all your teeth. So there's that.
Well, we didn't talk about 10th grade, and that's another story entirely.
I'm so not a fan of
not real
prop
right here.
guns. Like for that, when I did the movie, I did a movie a couple of years ago that just premiered in December called Alpha Rift. There's an indie flick shot down in Philly with a really cool group of guys. And I play like a zombie kind of goon, like I get possessed or something. And I'm doing this fight scene, and it ends up being me with like a M16, and I got to swing it. And I remember going in, I'm like, I can't use this gun. And they're like, no, it's fine. I'm like, and our stunt coordinator guy, Adam Durnoff, he's like, yeah, this doesn't seem like it's going to hold up. And the first take, it's me swinging against a guy like a knight with a sword, and literally cuts the gun in half.
You're like, nope.
And there was a cord in the prop gun. It breaks, and I wish I had the outtakes of it. He goes, it's the funniest thing. He goes, you swinging, and like, it's going to not hold. It breaks. I duck. It goes twirling over my head. And I'm like, it was basically nunchucks at this point. And the director's like, what happened? And Adam goes, you didn't see the gun just shatter into like 5 pieces? And he's like, okay, so we used the other one, and it worked better. But I was like, yeah, it's like guns are like, you got to, aim them. Make sure they're empty, prop guns. I said, but if you're doing anything other than like fake shooting with them, it has a tendency to go wrong. Like something's bad's gonna happen.
We're gonna have to wrap this up at this point. But I have a story for next week. On that front, and on pointed gun fails. I'm gonna probably not hold back much on this one because it was a miserable experience, one of the worst I've ever dealt with. It was an independent one that had some named people in it. But I'm going to cover that one a little bit.
Does this involve someone getting arrested?
No one was arrested, but they should have been.
Okay, because I'll caveat to that too about this. There was the indie flick in Jersey where someone got arrested.
No, this was in like Orange County kind of a thing.
Okay.
But no, I'll go into that one. And the person who didn't realize that pointing a gun with actual blanks in it at people, pointing it literally at someone's head was not the right thing to do when they thought it jammed. So we're going to tease on that one. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. This show can be heard on 122 different podcast platforms throughout the U.S., Canada, Europe. If you have an internet connection, you know what? You can listen to it in Antarctica, too. Why not? The Yukon, Nova Scotia,
It's pretty dark there right now. So, any entertainment is good entertainment.
Exactly.
In the Yukon.
Kazakhstan, Siberia, if you want to listen to it, I'm not going to speak any Russian because the only stuff I know is dirty stuff. But yeah, you can listen to this thing literally anywhere on the planet. You can find us always on Twitter, on Film Set Tales on Twitter, Facebook. I set one up, but I haven't gotten anything to it. Twitter has been basically the one that's been getting a little more pump anyway. But for Miss Jasmine Block-Krempels and Mr. Rob Stats, thank you as always. I appreciate you guys being on. Any last thoughts in 30 seconds or less for either one of you?
I just have to say, I was listening to NPR today, and Kyle Buchanan was on from, I think he's a film critic in the New York Times. He said exactly what we said about theater releases last week, but we said it first. I was so happy when he came to the same conclusion we did, and we beat him to it. So good for us.
But people know him and not us, so we're working
on it.
We're working on it. I have a couple things in the pipeline which I will tell you about later. So
I'll say everybody happy New Year. Let's make 2021 better than 2020.
You got it, man.
That shouldn't be too hard, but we can do it together. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week.
And you know what? Let me just say one thing. Announcing the passing of Greg Brown, someone from the industry, 72-year-old former military, EMT. Passed away from COVID a couple of days back. I took that one really kind of hard. So I want to just give a shout out to him because he was a really cool dude. But wow, we should not have ended it on that kind of a note. Anyway.
We give him a shout out. Great career, wonderful life.
Good guy. I had 2 IMDb credits with that man, so I appreciate that. So anyway, like I said, that's going to do it for us. The show can be heard on 122 different podcast platforms. Find us on Twitter. Drop a message to me. Any one of the 3 of us will answer whatever questions you got. Thoughts, comments, ideas, compliments, and complaints. So for Ms. Jasmine Block-Krempels and Mr. Rob Stats, I'm Scott Schertzen. Have a great night, and may the worst of your 2021 be better than your best of your 2020. Have a good night.